happening? Come on, man. Oh my god, I guess we are late. 1 second. Done. Live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. Let me send a message to people on WhatsApp. Something is wrong with Chrome today. Okay, let's go. Oh my god, some real problems happening, folks. Just hold on. If you can hear me, say something. And we will begin in a second. We will begin in a second. I guess I'll have to clean up the browser. And 128th episode. Done. Done. Yeah, we're live. We're good to go. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, folks? Am I here? Am I audible? It's already 8:13. We'll have to hurry up. So let me know if you can hear me. And we will begin the show that we deserve, right? The show that we deserve. We can't take a break, even though we had to. Can you hear me? Anybody there? Yeah, I see a lot of people here. Can hear you, says Mr. Aman Killa. Okay, so we will begin the show that we deserve. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. But before we go, we gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition? The sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Wonderful. Sublime. Healing. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. Such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So I couldn't come yesterday. Sorry about that. I got a lot of messages from people, at least 5 messages, and people said that they really valued it and they had been watching for 90 episodes plus, and some said they had been watching almost from the beginning, and it really helped them in a lot of ways. But I didn't know these people at all. I mean, they had never commented, they had never participated in a live chat, they had never spoken about it before, right? And here's what I have to say to all of you. I mean, criticism is supposed to be private. Appreciation should be in public, right? You should criticize in private, appreciate in public. Uh, but people do the opposite, right? People appreciate in private, criticize in public. I don't know why though. Everybody is aware of the social media dynamics, the social media currency, right? Everybody knows how things work, how things grow on social media. And it's basically their appreciation which can actually grow the effort. But they still choose to be, first of all, silent spectators. And it comes to a point where they can't be silent spectators anymore, they have to appreciate. They go on appreciating in private. It doesn't make any sense, folks. Come forward with your support, with your appreciation. Come forward. Your silent appreciation or private appreciation, I can't show the receipts to people. It doesn't grow the effort, right? So come forward. If you like it, if it's helping you, come forward, support it with comments or whatever. Or just don't tell me, right? Because what will I do of your private appreciation, right? Whom will I show your long message to? It just doesn't make any sense. With that out of the way, let's begin. But I was very touched that people actually value things. Mr. Tiwari says negative news sells fast. Yeah, maybe. So, MUFG, Mitsubishi UFG Financial Group, is in advanced talks to take a 20% stake in India's second largest NBFC, Shriram Finance. This is the second deal by a Japanese banking corporation, banking sector play. First one was, of course, Sumitomo buying Yes Bank. Now Mitsubishi getting 20% of Shriram, right? Uh, Now this again is a bid for the Japanese player to take the controlling interest gradually. And that's exactly what's happening with Sumitomo as well. They bought some stake and then they're going to raise it up to the controlling stake. Similarly, in the case of Mitsubishi getting Shriram Finance, they're going to begin with 20% and then they're going to get a controlling stake in the NBFC, that is Shriram Finance. Why is Japanese banking paraphernalia looking at India with such keen interest? Well, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know. We discussed this a long time ago, that India was trying to get the Japanese capital allocators, the banks, and so on and so forth, into the India play, right? And they said we are on to it. And well, when Sumitomo was the first player to get in the tranches, a lot of them are gonna soon follow. And this is one of the they are interested in Indian banking sector since they already did in Yes Bank, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Correct, Mr. Sharma, correct. That's exactly what we were talking about. Speaking of Indian finance, Indian fiscal deficit has risen to 38% of the target by August. So now this headline might seem scary to some, but no, it's not. What happened was in the last year, year prior, uh, there wasn't much front loading of the capital expense by the government because of the election year, right? So there was an election year, due to which this particular year saw a lot of front loading of expenses. When you have a lot of front loading of government expenses, right, the fiscal deficit up to the point, up till August, let's say, rises as compared to the last year. Because last year, due to the election thing, there was not much capital expense, right? This year there was. So that's why the fiscal deficit as compared to the last year slightly looks higher. But the overall fiscal deficit target is 4.4% of GDP, which is gonna be maintained. So that's what the government is saying. Higher spending and lower net tax mop up widened fiscal deficit up to August this year compared to 27% a year ago. So by in last year, the last year, 27% of the total fiscal deficit was reached till August. This year it's 38%. So you can imagine. In absolute terms, this is what happens, and so on. So no worries. It's basically the government having to having made so much of capex expenses, and secondly, the tax mop up has obviously reduced because of the GST Bachat Mahotsav. But the government is gonna stick to its fiscal targets, 4.4%, right? Fiscal deficit target. So I hope people like viewers of Thinkers Frequency obviously know, but people are aware about fiscal deficit and current account deficit, right? I hope there is no confusion there. We've talked a lot about this, but if somebody wants an explanation, I can do it. Anyway, this notwithstanding, India has had to have a bad news coming from Moody's. Moody's didn't upgrade India's ratings, unfortunately. So Moody's stuck with their ratings for India, which was very sad because S&Ps were the first people to have a sovereign upgrade for us, right? Triple B negative to triple B, due to which our bonds became better. Then Fitch didn't do it, right? And S&Ps hasn't done it. Japanese RNI, if you remember, did that. So Japan's biggest rating agency did that. S&P did that. Fitch and Moody's haven't done it, which is not such a great news for the country, of course, right? So moving forward, 7 domestic companies throw hat in ring to develop fifth generator fighter jets. L&T, HAL, Adani Defense, Tata, Kalyani among bidders. Panel led by former DRDO scientist to assess offers. So that's what's going on. We've talked a lot about it. It's going to be a 15,000 crore pilot prototype, right? And then lakhs of crores will be spent on the project. After development, 120 fighter jets are expected to be ordered, 120. Right? Deliveries will be starting by 2035. We are sitting at 2025. The fifth generation aircraft will be delivered by 2035, in 10 years from now. Now, how's the world gonna look in 2035? We don't know. We don't know. But is the world gonna be same in 2035? That's for sure not gonna happen, right? The world is gonna change, the battlefield is gonna change, everything is gonna change. With the changing battlefield, do you think it makes sense to develop a fifth generation fighter jet which is gonna be delivered in 2035? Only 120 pieces, by the way. 120 pieces of a fifth generation fighter plane, which will have like lakhs of crores spent on it. So you remember, we had a very deep discussion on it. I said that it doesn't make sense for India to invest in its own fifth generation plane. You could buy the plane, you could buy a fifth generation or sixth generation plane from wherever you want to buy, but it doesn't make to spend your R&D, time, resources, money on developing, by yourself, because by the time it's gonna get delivered, drones will be everywhere. And I wrote a very big article, and I got a lot of dumb responses to it, that who you don't know, maybe these people know better. So basically typical authority bias BS, right? And then I did a deep dive, and then I found out that Mr. Elon Musk had the exact same view as I had been saying, like exact same view. So he said that the world belongs to swarm of AI drones, right? When you get a human out of the plane, you can move beyond the technical limitations that the plane is supposed to have, because with a human on board, you can't go as fast, or you can't have some, technical freedoms which a drone can have. And he says a drone can be cheap, a drone can be expensive, a drone can you can have swarms of drones tackling one airplane, and you're just gonna get pilots killed. And he said that the war is currently an all drone war, and it's only gonna get exacerbated as technology has an exponential curve. Humans don't have an exponential curve. So a fighter plane is only going to be killing pilots, right? And you know where he did this speech, this panel discussion? At a US military enclave. So the person developing space tech and everything, he essentially had exact same view as we had discussed, knowing where the world is going as far as the drone fight is considered. But some dumb comments believed that it makes sense to invest in fighter planes even in this day and age. And we have a history of making these investments, right? 1976 was when Arjun tank was sanctioned. It got inducted in late 2010s, I guess, right? And it was retired by the time, I mean, it was already outdated by the time it happened. Tejas, same thing, 1980s, early 1980s or late 70s, inducted in 2016-18. Not really anything. So when we are targeting a 2035 thing, we might just have a 2040 thing. And by 2040 or even by 2035, the world would have already moved on to an all drone warfare, and we'll have these 120 showpieces, unfortunately, which will put the pilots' lives at risk. Also, another point: China is already at sixth generation. Cannot India skip fifth gen and move directly to sixth gen like they did, moving to BS6? BS6. You stage Bharat stage 6, the pollution emission norm. Well, India gradually moved there. But no, there is a technology cap to it, right? So that's a problem. And India cannot move directly to a 6th gen, of course, but India can just skip it and move to drones, because that's where all the action is, right? And so Mr. Sharma, the scenario is that a lot of people think that stealth is, a very big thing. And Mr. Musk had an opinion on that. He said stealth is not invisible. Stealth is stealth for a very obsolete technology of radars. If you have infrared based systems, you can detect stealth in no time. And then he said, the general or whoever was interviewing him, right, the colonel or something, he asked, what happens to Tom Cruise, right? How is Tom Cruise going to save the world if drones take everything? And to which he said, there could be a case where a plane essentially, right, if there are a lot of drones, right, you fire an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse bomb. What an EMP does is it basically switches off all the electronics and all the electricals. So EMP pulse bomb, it's called electromagnetic pulse bomb. It just switches off everything, right? All the supplies, all your phones get off. So he says, if you go and put on an EMP on the sky, in the sky, and then it closes everything, right? It just shuts down all the drones for a while, right? At that time, you could use a plane, but even that plane will have to be purely mechanical. If there are any electronics on that plane, you won't be able to do anything. So Tom Cruise will only be able to save the world if there's an EMP, and that EMP essentially takes out all the drones, and the plane is only built using mechanical parts, no electronics. So a great discussion. I recommend everybody to watch that. When I started getting a lot of dumb comments, right, I started sharing that link instead, because you can't counter authority bias, man. People say, hey, why are you such an expert on defense? There are a lot of experts on defense, and I'm like, you are battling resumes, man. Instead of battling an idea, like somebody has come out with an idea, right? Instead of battling that idea, what you bring up is a resume. That, hey, what's your resume, right? Instead of looking at the idea, judging on its merits, thinking about a better idea, countering an idea with an idea, you get in a battle of resumes. Okay, so hey, let's just watch. Elon Musk says the same thing. Now what, right? Uh, do experts know more than Elon Musk, right? So that's I don't believe in authority bias at all. I believe it's a very, and I don't believe everything that Mr. Musk says. I think he can be wrong as well, and I'd always choose to think on my own and study on my own, and then learn on my own and counter ideas with ideas instead of resumes. But you know very interestingly, he had the same view. He, in fact, said one line which needs to be mentioned. He said, sharing a video, and there are idiots who are still working on F-35. So he literally called people who were working on the F-35 program of US idiots, right? Not saying that he's right, not saying he's wrong, but he said it. So anyway, moving on. Uh, Bharat Stage 6 instead of Bharat Stage 5. Did India not get Bharat Stage 5? It moved directly from 4 to 6. But again, that's analogy thinking, Mr. Sharma. Don't think in analogies just because they could move a standard from 4 to 6. I don't know, by the way. I'm not sure if they skipped Bharat 5 to Bharat 6 directly. But even if they skipped a standard, an emission standard from Bharat 4 to Bharat 6, doesn't mean the same rules will apply for skipping a technology development project. You understand? Technology development is very different from a standard upgradation, right? Bharat 4, Bharat 6 is a standard, right? Fighter planes of fifth generation, sixth generation, they are a technology. So upgrading a technology is different from upgrading a standard. In any case, never go for analogy thinking. Don't use analogy thinking. In any case, right? Anywhere, analogy thinking is the enemy of humanity. Moving on. Uh, so, Indocent's dealer exit under scanner. Police probes role of Gondane, who left India after his resignation. So, IndusInd Bank is in trouble, of course. A lot of probes happening. CFO turning whistleblower, saying a lot of things happened, right? Scrutiny all over the place. Well, viewers of Thinkers Frequency, remember, even before IndusInd's thing came out, right? I had told you about Hinduja family in general, right? The kind of stuff they had pulled on. It's no surprise. It's no surprise. By the way, uh, India's biggest user base, Perplexity Plans Local Fund, says Mr. Arvind Srinivas. Arvind sir, who is basically uh, the founder and CEO of Perplexity AI. Perplexity AI is a search AI based search company, right? And it's tied up with Airtel as a distribution carrier. It's doing a lot of work. So he says that India is the biggest user base, and Perplexity will not just open its own policy uh, policy office in India. Like OpenAI has only started a policy office in India. They are very clear. They don't want Indian engineering. They are just setting a policy office in Delhi, right? He says we're not just gonna set a policy office in India. We're gonna set an engineering unit in India, in Hyderabad or Bangalore. And he says that he's also gonna start a local fund, which essentially helps India out. Well, I think these AI companies have just been harvesting Indian users to train their models, and it's just gonna be very nice if India found a way to push its own AI like Sarvam or Gnani or whatever, just make it, uh, get mass adoption through non-tariff barriers. Of course, you can't ban these people, but somehow just do something that we stop being data harvesters for these foreign AI companies, right? That would be great. That would be amazing for the country. Let's see if that can happen. Moving on, uh, a lot of political chit chat, which you're very happy to not discuss, right? Bulgari has some great news from India. Bulgari is an Italian, I'm assuming Italian. It's basically a foreign based Italian. It's an Italian luxury brand, and it says that India is a very keen market, and they're one of the first few foreign, you know, luxury fashion plays which have actually actively incorporated Indian stylings and Indian localization, and they're very happy with what's happening in the country. Well, I am clearly not a fashion guy. Can't comment on it. E-scooter company River to raise $150 million. So there's an e-scooter company called River. I did not know about it at all, but it's going to raise $150 million, and it's, by the way, it's raising money from a lot of people, very very big prominent companies. So Aravind Money is the founder of River, right? And so he says River Mobility, backed by marquee investors including Japan's Yamaha, Mitsui, and Toyota Ventures, has shortlisted sites in two states. So e-scooter River is gonna enter the fray. It's gonna manufacture like 20,000 units a month, right? Raised 70 million in 4 rounds, and now gonna raise 150 million. So that's what's 32 stores. I had no idea about this company. Did you? Does anybody know about River? River scooters, electric scooters by River. Never heard of these guys before until today, right? But apparently these people have a lot of financial heft. So let's see how they function as far as the whole market is considered. Moving on. Grocery electronics goods sales dip in September quarter despite GST boost. Sales volume fall 5% amid a hearing first time, says Mr. Sharma. Nope, hearing River for the first time, says Mr. Yogendra Pratap Singh. Yeah, exactly. And apparently they have 32 stores. They have 70 million already raised, 150 million raising right now. I'll have to check the family. They must be from some sort of industrial family of India, right? That's the only explanation. Anyway, moving on. Grocery electronics goods sales dip in September quarter despite GST boost. Sales volume fall 5% amid transition to lower GST rates, but could pick up in the next 2 quarters. So as I said day before yesterday, it's not clear whatever is happening, but this is September quarter. So April, May, June, July, August, September. September had just 8 days of renewed, or let's say the revolution, the consumption revolution that the country is hoping for. Just 8 days, right? So it is not the clear indicator. Sales have dipped. Revenue, September month wasn't that great, but it was Shraddh period followed by 22nd, which was the early Navratri, first Navratri. Now 22nd to 28th, it was just 6 days of whatever's going on. Too soon to judge, but as I said, it's not that green as I was hoping, or something of that sort. Not happened yet. Soft drink sales fall 25% year on year, steepest decline among all FMCG companies categories. Shipments of smartphones grew 7 to 9%. Outlook for the next 2 quarters positive. Right, benefits of GST at 2.5 lakh crores. We've heard that enough. Let's see how the consumers. This is October 1. October has begun. Now October, November, December, January, February, March. Now October, November, December is the key month for all purchases, right? Let's see how India does that. I wish India all the luck in the world, and then some more. Moving on. Probe begins after children die of toxic cough syrup. Apparently cough syrups have been very very dangerous coming from India. So a lot of kids in Africa had died because of cough syrups and their problems, right? Now some kids in Rajasthan have also died because of cough syrups. So there's a probe. This is why the government was pushing on the renewed focus on quality control to Indian pharma, right? Indian pharma, the SMEs, the MSMEs, manufacturing pharma products, they were very opposed to the idea of modernization of their manufacturing facilities. However, it's just a no-brainer. You know, these things, they're gonna ruin India's reputation abroad, if they've not done that already, right? So a lot of modernization is very necessary. Uh, Children died. Several children died after taking toxic cough syrup in various parts of Rajasthan. The cough syrup is manufactured by Jaipur based Kaisen Pharma. So that's what's happened. Very, very unfortunate. You know, in a case similar to this, what had happened was that they had sanctioned a company for like they had put a company up for trouble because it came out that company had manufactured faulty products, but then people figured out that that company hadn't manufactured those products. Some fake company had used that company's label to actually manufacture that product, right? So it's also that is also happening, that because of all the corruption that we have, people just set up pharmaceutical labs and they just borrow companies labels and steal companies label and then push it across, and then that company says, hey, we didn't manufacture this, where did you get it from? It's not coming from us, and then that whole thing becomes a legal episode, and then lawyers make money. So it's a very cultural problem. Moving on. Bayer seeks approval for key heart drug in India. Bayer is a German group. They are basically uh, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, right? This is so unfortunate. There should be more strict norms and penalty punishment for adulteration. It's very unfortunate. It's just heartbreakingly sad, right? For the country, for everybody's lives, their near and dear ones. And also, uh, at a macro level, it's sad that something like this can happen. That people are willing to make money by selling wrong medicines. That's a cultural issue. It's like how shitty you have to be, what a piece of shit you have to be to actually sell bad medicines to people, right? You know that these medicines are bad, and that people use these medicines to save their lives, to alleviate their pain and so on and so forth, and you still want to just make money by selling dirty medicines. So there must be a special place in hell for these assholes, right? But until then, they're here on earth and making money. Moving on. Yeah, so that's what's happening. Bayer is basically looking at a new hard drug approval. Moving on. Fiscal gap, we've already discussed the fiscal gap situation. E-commerce under lens over GST benefits. Government pulls up some firms for raising prices. So as expected, when the government essentially brought the whole GST revolution, what it wanted was that this GST benefit is going to be passed on to the customer so that they can save some money and buy some more, which essentially helps economic activity. But as expected, a lot of OTAs like Make My Trip and all, and e-commerce companies, they started playing fishy. They raised the price, then discounted it, brought the GST down, just so people pay the usual fare, right? And people are basically pointing that out, and it's viral on the internet where people are saying that this shouldn't have happened. So people have actually gotten screenshots to compare before and after, and they say that they are just running a scam and the government should do something. So, of course, e-commerce under lens, National Consumer Helpline gets 3,000 complaints. 3,000 complaints. So, again, a cultural issue, right? Moving on, key export scheme extended till March. Uh, the government essentially is extending a key scheme which basically gives exporters benefits as far as duties, taxes, returns are considered. Some 3.6 to 3.9. Refunds under the scheme range from 0.3 to 3.9%, and they say we're going to extend it till March, till the deal essentially gets sorted, which is basically expected, right? So the government is trying to help. Self-reliance and focus to counter weaponization of trade, says Mr. Piyush Goyal. He says tariffs are weaponization of trade, and self-reliance is the solution to it. Self-reliance, Atmanirbharta, uh, a solution to weaponization of trade, right? Now, I understand where India is coming from, and India obviously needs to do self-reliance, right? And Atmanirbharta is great. 60 to 70% of our domestic economy is already domestic consumption, right? I wonder how far you can stretch it, right? How much can we stretch our domestic consumption? But weaponization of trade is sort of the wrong way to look at it, right? If US is basically looking at its own interests now, until now they were just very happy to get fleeced off by every country, right? They killed their manufacturing because of short-term thinking people, right? The McKinsey types, the suit wearing, these people just led to an offshoring uh, catastrophe for the US economy, right? They started just basically killing their own manufacturing, sending it to China, and so on and so forth. Now, taking it back is not weaponization of trade, right? Taking it back is not weaponization of trade. And if weaponization of trade is a problem, why was India so happy when China was getting screwed, right? So Atmanirbharta is great, but it's instead of positioning it as a weaponization of trade kind of a rhetoric, India should say that every country is looking out on its own for its own, and so will we, right? And then ban these AI apps. Moving on. Morgan Stanley says India must grow 12% to address job skill mismatch. So the company has come out with a report saying that India has a very big job and skill mismatch, right? And in order to hire all these people, India will have to grow at 12%. So the quarterly group growth that we showed of 7.4%, that's great. That's good for participation. That's good for a lot of things. But there are labor mismatches, right? Youth unemployment is high in Asia, and to manage that, the country will have to grow 12% each year to add to the underemployment scheme. Moving on, this is what these people are saying. At the moment, the country is growing at 6.5%, and they say that's not enough. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Thank you. Thank you for nothing. Moving on. I hope I'm not missing out on anything. I generally don't. I never do. But yeah. Moving on. There's news about Grow founders hiking their stake to 29% ahead of listing. Uh, right? They've essentially bought their shares, and it's a way to essentially uh, make use of the growing value of the company that you try to buy back your shares. So Grow founders have done it. There's no surprise, and the company is looking at a serious valuation, $7 to $8 billion, and I think they have a bright future. Right? Anything in broking, pretty good play, pretty good play. Nothing more very surprising there. Bound for blockbuster IPOs, companies undercutting grey market. We know what's been happening. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency remember with the IPO. IPOs are getting buzzed a lot. FPIs have been going out of India uh, in equities, but they've been getting in the IPO play. So what was happening was that people used to try and hold on to unlisted shares, right? And they did that a lot. So they know that this company is gonna go big on IPO and there's going to be a pop in IPO. So instead of waiting for IPO allotment, what they did was they bought some unlisted shares, right? And then what they saw was that this unlisted share essentially, uh, the company has chosen to not reward it a lot, right? So in two companies' cases, one was HDB and now I guess it's Tata Capital, right? Yesterday's news had Tata Capital giving a bad news for people who had bought unlisted shares by going at a much lower valuation for the IPO. So the greedy people who went out of their way to get into the unlisted share business, they ended up losing money, right? HDB also did that, by the way, 40% discount. So last traded price for Tata Capital was 735 and the price band is 310 to 326 and HDB Finance was 1225 and the price band was 700 to so these people like I mean Schadenfreude, but Schadenfreude. What's the right pronunciation of Schadenfreude? Is it Schadenfreude or one second, guys? I'll just check it. Pronunciation. Schadenfreude. Freudo. Oh, one second.
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude. So Schadenfreude. It's a bit of a Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is when you are happy for somebody else's loss. I'm not happy for anybody's loss, but why go out of your way to but RBI is essentially moving forward. They want to make unlisted share economy a bit more regulated, much more regulated, much more accessible, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a pre-IPO market of sorts, right? We've talked about that. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember. We've talked about RBI looking at an unlisted pre-IPO kind of a market space. Moving on. Axis plan to sell stake in NBFC arm runs into investor caution. Potential buyers want regulatory clarity before taking a call on valuations. So there's something called, there's a verb for it, forms of business. So forms of business circular by RBI essentially talks about how banking companies and their NBFC arms are supposed to deal with conflicts of interest or selling the same security or selling the same asset class or whatever, right? There is a forms of business circular that is awaited. Now Axis Bank has an NBFC and they wanted to sell stake to sort of make some money on it, right? Get some cash. But before finalizing the valuation of that particular play, investors want some regulatory clarity coming from RBI as far as forms of business are considered. Because a banking company, essentially HDFC, was it? Yeah, it faced a lot of problems as far as demerging of its units were considered, and then cross-selling or mis-selling, or let's say conflict of interests based on same units being sold by both the players, right? So that is an issue which Axis is facing right now, which HDFC already faced, by the way. And let's see what the RBI, once RBI clarifies this, the forms of business thing, forms of business, don't forget, it's going to be easier for these companies to demerge their entities, raise capital, and so on and so forth. Right? Moving on. Aim is the same, but RBI will track wider. Weighted average call rate to be operating target for monetary policy, along with liquidity management system. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how RBI has been looking at VRRs, VRRs, WACR, that is weighted average call rate, liquidity adjustment facility, that is LAF, and so on and so forth. Because that's how you manage the liquidity, right, of the banking system. And once you have the banking system liquidity sorted, only then you can hope for some stability as far as that. Sorry, just 1 second. Is considered. So, the weighted average call rate to be operating target. This shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. We've been talking a lot about how RBI has been trying to suck out the excess liquidity, sometimes given liquidity. So when the banking system had excess liquidity, RBI was keeping VRRs, right, auctions, so that the excess liquidity can be sucked out. When a banking system had less liquidity, RBI changed the CRR ratio, CRR to from 4 to 3%, and then it did a VRRR auction where it gave liquidity to the system. So that's the job of the RBI. That's what RBI does, managing liquidity, right? And it says RBI would continue to use overnight weighted average call rate as the operating target for monetary policy along with the existing corridor system for liquidity management, right? Not many people understand this. It would, however, track other overnight money market segments in a bid to ensure orderly evolution of money market rates. So, weighted average call rate is the rate at which banks are essentially, trading money, storing money at an overnight rate. Okay, so the formal definition of weighted average call rate is essentially average interest rate for overnight borrowing and lending between banks in the interbank call money market. Okay, so banks, interbank call money market, average rate on that is called weighted average call rate. Okay, now weighted average call rate is basically should be related with the repo rate. Okay, the repo rate which the RBI decides. So that's what it says. 1 second. Yeah, RBI aims to keep the WACR, weighted average call rate, around the policy repo rate, which currently stands at 5.5%, 5.50. The repo rate is in the middle of the corridor system with standing deposit facility and marginal standing facility at 25 BPS above or 25 BPS below. So that's basically how it is. It's not going to do a 14-day VRR or VRRR auction as it used to. They will be replaced by 7-day and other operations ranging from overnight to 14 days based on liquidity needs. So until now, there was this, 14-day auction for VRR and VRRR. VRR is variable repo rate, and VRRR auction, basically money sucking and money withdrawing from money pushing and money sucking systems, VRR, VRRRs, right? And they're going to be done at a 7-day and or basis liquidity needs. So that's what's happening. And this shouldn't be complicated for viewers of Thinkers Frequency, because we've been talking a lot about this for like 120 episodes. A lot of people get scared, but banks have to manage liquidity on the B2B side. I mean, the liquidity, the excess cash they have, that's to be managed. Now they have to park that cash, and they have to park that cash at an interest, and they have to take that money to and fro interbank call rate system, and so on and so forth. So that's how this particular bit operates, right? Average interest rate for overnight borrowing and lending between banks, that's called WACR, sorry. India's external debt rises 1.5%, but reserves have got its back. India's external debt rose by $11.2 billion to 742, but debt to GDP ratio has moderated to 18.94% from 19.1% 3 months ago. Now, how is external debt rising but debt to GDP ratio falling? Because the GDP is growing, right? So the external debt to GDP ratio of this country of India is at 18.9% right now. What is China's debt to GDP ratio, external debt to GDP ratio? Question. We've discussed this. People should remember. What is China's external debt to GDP ratio? Do you remember, guys? We discussed this. 60%? 40%? No, 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 no. Come on. That's not right at all. At all. So that was the insight, right? You remember? Don't you remember? It was at 12%. Oh, that's surprising. China's external debt ratio is 12%, right? Debt to GDP ratio. Let me check if I'm wrong. If you guys are saying 40%, China external debt to GDP 12.9%, guys. Yeah, come on. That's what makes Chinese economy so robust, right? The external debt to GDP ratio is so solid. And everybody says 12.9%. Yes, Mr. Singh. So, whenever anybody says, "Oh, China's economy is in trouble" and so on, so just wait a second. Wait a second is the answer. And a lot of this, basically, the external debt has risen by 1.5% because of the currency problem. In rupee has been depreciating, right? Rupee has been depreciating. This is why the debt has been rising in dollars. So that is a bit of a problem. A lot of it is essentially because of that. So the rise in countries largely because of the exchange rate variations. Yeah, we've talked about that. US dollar denominated debt remained the largest component of the country's external debt with a share of 53%. So 53% of the external debt is basically dollar denominated, followed by debt denominated in rupee by 30%, then yen 6% and euro 3.5%. So most of it is in dollars, right? 50%. Do not forget that. These are very important numbers. These decide the fate of the country, right? Share of reserves in India's international financial assets increased to 58.7%. Rest of it is pretty clear, standard. Moving on. Tariffs bite, yet India maintains its credit score. No surprise there. India has been pretty solid credit-wise. I wonder why these agencies, Moody's and Fitch, didn't do an upgrade. Assholes. Moving on. Home loan weakness, a drag on retail credit. People are not buying homes, it seems, right? Mortgage lending growth rate has slowed down to 9.7% in August, compared with 13% a year ago. It was 13% a year ago. Now it's 9%. So the growth rate has slowed down of home loans. Now that is dragging down the retail growth rate, right? That maybe it's deferred purchase. Maybe people believe that the rate transition, as it happens, the loans are gonna get cheaper and it's gonna make sense to buy a home later. Maybe that's what's happening. So that's total housing loans stood at this 31 lakh crores, right? Industry attributed the slowdown to relative reluctance among banks, especially those privately owned, to chase housing loans because of the pressure on margins due to reduction in interest rate. Right? So that's what they're saying. Housing loans form 50% of the loans to individual. It is limiting growth in retail credit. So just remember, housing loans form 50% of loans to individuals for personal consumption. So half of the loans that Indians take, they go for housing, right? It is limiting retail growth and so on and so forth. So retail credit growth has grown 11.8% in August compared to 13.9% a year ago. Gold loans, by the way, have been growing. What did I tell you about gold, guys? Didn't I tell you? What did I tell you? And what happened? Exactly what I told you. And when did I say it would happen? A long time ago, right? Gold is rising. If gold rises, gold loans rise, right? And that's what's happening. So people expect this to come down. Mr. Tiwari says homes are not affordable now. Yeah, we've discussed that as well in a lot of depth, if you remember. Affordability of homes is a very good indicator of what a country is uh, looking like. As Tucker Carlson said, Mr. Tucker Carlson, he said GDP is not a great measure of a country's economic prowess. It is whether uh, a person making an average wage can buy a home in his 30s, right? So definitely homes are more expensive, and that's why the government is trying to distribute the GCCs outside metros, right? Because if GCCs start piling up on metros, the metropolitan homes rates are gonna go further up. If they go gonna further up, it's just gonna be unsustainable, right? People will not be able to buy homes. Moving on. So Team Trump has essentially raised the tariff of films outside US to US. So he has raised the tariff, and people are saying like 60% of Hollywood's revenues comes from outside. This is very weird, but Indian films don't have anything to worry about, right? Why are Indian films worried about? How much do we make overseas? Just look at these figures. Bahubali 2, which is like a one of the most highest churning movies, it made 22 million in US. That was box office. That means that the movie made 10 million, around 10 million gross from US. 10 million is 80 crores. Bahubali 2's collections were in thousands of crores. So for a movie which has thousands of crores in collections in US, globally, what is 80 crores? Why are you crying about it? They say we'll have to raise the price. So yeah, do it. Anyway, moving on. Monsoon season wraps up with rainfall 8% more than normal. So average rainfall this season was 8% more than normal, and now monsoon has ended. Winters will begin. Monsoon's ending means renewed a second season for agriculture, right? And then that means more consumption from rural areas, which is exactly what's happening, by the way. As soon as monsoon season wrapped up or started showing signs of going back, we saw rural consumption picking up, right? Not a coincidence. Nothing is a coincidence. If you judge history as a process, and if you know the second order effects of things, nothing is a coincidence. Almost nothing. Moving on. PVR Inox is facing a CCI probe. Come on, man. Okay. 2-minute dramas, $1 billion dreams. So there's a deep dive being done on micro dramas. How many of you watch micro dramas, guys? Does anybody here watch micro dramas? Do you look at micro dramas? Huh? These people have been investing, VCs, venture capital firms, and a lot of investments are going on in micro dramas, like companies literally raising money to make micro dramas. That's what's happening in India. Micro dramas, this experiment's gonna end in tears, right? Is what I think. Nobody in India is gonna pay for micro drama. And as you fund micro dramas and as the production costs go cheaper and cheaper, people without money will also be able to make micro dramas. If they're able to make micro dramas, there'll be no incentive for a company or no strength of a company to speak about. If I can make a micro drama, which is a piece of shit, right? 2-minute vertical story, right? If I can do that, and I will be able to do that, all right, a company which has raised money for it would not be able to have any sort of financial hedge, right? And that experiment's gonna end in tears. But these people have been funding it. A lot of money has been going on. So their case is that UPI enabled devices are close to 50 crore. right? Market size should be by $10 billion by 2030. Average attention span 8 rupees. Production cost of a micro drama is 15 to 20 lakhs. Micro payments, homemakers, Gen Z, Gen Alpha gonna pay for watching micro dramas. Come on, man. Come on. So these people have just got a lack of what is it? People who've been investing in micro dramas, what they have a lack of is just shame. They have a lack of shame, right? To fund micro dramas. Now, it's not about money. It's not about whether it's a good business case or not. Okay, it's why would you invest money into making more noise, right? This is noise, right? This is just bullshit, right? These 2 minute dramas, they're not adding any but value to anything, anybody, right? These people, they're just cringe, right? And it's just gonna add more. You're adding more noise to the internet, and you're giving people money so that they could add more noise to the internet. The real thing you lack is not business acumen, is not financial acumen, is not a real thesis. It's basically shame, right? That's what I think. Now, listen to their case, essentially, why they're looking at this, right? Microdrama content found its origins in China with launch of two short video platforms, Kaoshao and Douyin, between 2013 to 2016. Increasing adoption of smartphones created a favorable environment for these bit-sized content. The microdrama economy by Media Partners Asia. You'll have to check this report. It comes with a lot of pinch of salt, right? Jumped to $7 billion in 2024 from 500 million in 2021. In fact, revenues are likely to surpass China's box office and achieve a 9.4 billion mark this year. Now, is this just micro dramas, or is this OTTs with micro dramas, and so on and so forth? Got to take everything with a pinch of salt. The report points out to more than 830 million viewers consuming micro drama, out of which 60 are paid subscribers. So 60% are paid subscribers out of the 830 million viewers consuming micro drama. Now, this is definitely they're clubbing micro dramas with the existing OTTs. I can say that even without reading the report, right? It further states by 2030, advertising for such content will contribute 56% of revenues in China. Now, they're saying that 60% of people are paid, but by 2030, 50% of their money is going to come from advertising and not by users, right? So beyond China, US and Japan are also looking at it. Bite-sized content is estimated to generate revenue of 3.8 billion, largely because of its thematic resonance and so on and so forth. There's audience appeal for this bullshit, and this is why these people are funding it, right? But the real reason, I told you, the real reason why money is going into this is because these people have a lack of, what was it? What was it the lack of, right? Come on, guys. What was it the lack of? It was the lack of shame, right? They just want to add, they'll pay money to people to just add noise to the internet. Just add noise. Shame. Mr. Tiwari. It is funny if you look at it that way, but it's also very sad. Very sad. Now somebody is making something, right? He's making a product or whatever. He won't get money, right? This has some who will get money? Somebody who's making micro dramas, right? Look at the story. Imagine this: a poor boy and a rich girl fall in love. She hides her background, drawn instead to his daredevil spirit. Encouraged by his lady love, the boy launches a successful startup. Just luck starts shining. The boy's mother rejects the girl for being too poor. But then comes the proverbial twist. She's the daughter of the startup's biggest client. The differences are resolved. Love finally wins. Story ends happily ever after. These people are, Anyway, moving on. There's a lot of things happening. Pfizer has gotten a 3-year reprieve from Trump pharma tariffs, right? they've basically gotten a deal which they'll sell 90%. So Pfizer will sell drugs at 50% average discount in a direct to consumer site called Trump RX, right? So they'll sell a lot of their drugs at 50% off, and that's how they've been able to get a 3-year reprieve from the pharma tariffs. Trump had announced 100% tariffs on pharma, right? So that's happening. YouTube, by the way, is paying Trump $22 million in damages for essentially just deleting his channel on the January 6th pretext, right? You remember what happened during January 6th? A lot of things happened. People stormed into the Capitol, and Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, they all banned his accounts totally. They just banned a sitting president's accounts on social media. They just banned it, right? Now they've given $22 million. It's gonna pay for the building that he's making. Moving on, Hamas in Gaza. Hamas Gaza Israel conflict. Real stuff is happening there, right? A lot of things happening. There is a Trump plan. Everybody says Trump plan is good. Mr. Modi says Trump plan is good. And nobody knows what's going to happen though, right? ExxonMobil is cutting 2,000 jobs. ExxonMobil is a $500 billion oil seller, essentially. The largest company by revenues it was at one point, ExxonMobil. It's an oil company. It's going to cut 2,000 jobs in US. Moving on. Spectrum sale process has begun in 10 bands, including 6G. But you know what's going to happen with that, right? Nobody's going to buy 6G. 6G auctions are not being favored right now. You know why? Because 5G has seen less penetration as of now. So 5G has some 38% penetration or something. 6G is obviously not going to come anytime. With that, we'll come to the end of the 128th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I hope it added value to you. I hope it was fun. I hope it was nice. It definitely added a lot of value to me. I learned a lot. I also had a lot of fun. I need to thank Mr. Abhishek Sharma, Mr. Aman Killa, Mr. Raj, Mr. Sumant Kumar, Mr. Tushar Tiwari, and everybody else who joined. Do not keep your praise, do not keep your appreciation private, right? Keep your criticism private. Support the endeavor if you like it. If you like it. If you don't like it, it's okay, it's fine. I've never asked people to subscribe. I've never asked people to like it, or whatever, drop comments. But if you are so affected positively by an effort, don't message me about it, right? Share the praise. Bring people. Let's grow. Mr. Amritraj says, good to see you back and hope you've recovered. Thank you so much, Mr. Raj. Please take care. I wish you all a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Take care. Bye-bye.